The anime begins with a young girl introducing herself. She recalls that she was once named Alicia, but now she is a young girl with black hair and golden eyes, the only daughter of the noble William family. She reflects that she is undoubtedly in another world. She continues, explaining that just yesterday, she was someone else, but now she has been reincarnated as a villainess. Leaving her room, she greets the maid with a good morning, surprising her. Alicia remarks on how unusual it is for her to wake up early and greet the maid, but from now on, she is determined to become the greatest villain in history. She acknowledges that she still has much to learn and knows she needs a strong body. She approaches her older brother, William Albert, and greets him with good morning, catching him off guard. He notes that it's rare to see her up so early. Alicia then asks him to teach her swordsmanship so she can grow stronger, astonishing her two other brothers, who dismiss it as one of her whims. However, her eldest brother agrees and offers to start her training. He tells her that before learning sword fighting, she must build her physical strength by doing 100 push-ups and 50 squats daily. If she manages that for a week, he'll begin her sword training. Though her brothers doubt her, Alicia confidently assures them she will succeed. Later in the library, Alicia realizes she needs to learn magic while building her physical strength. The William family is known for excelling in dark magic, which includes elements like darkness, light, water, wind, and fire. However, she struggles to find any magic books, so she decides to learn about plants instead. She recognizes the importance of knowledge beyond magic, like medicinal herbs and edible wild birds. Reflecting on the differences between this world and her previous one, Alicia absorbs all the information from her reading. The next day, Alicia begins her physical training. Though difficult, she remains determined, counting her push-ups and vowing to continue until she is worthy of sword fighting lessons. As the days pass, her strength grows rapidly, and she notices her push-ups become easier. She speculates that this may be due to the new world she inhabits, but welcomes the improvement. Alicia soon masters her exercises, managing hundreds of pull-ups and push-ups. Her progress in both swordsmanship and magic astonishes her. Despite her growth, she wonders why she hasn't yet left an impression as a true villainess. Determined, she confidently greets her older brother and others, who are surprised by her beauty and maturity. Despite her young age of 7, Alicia resolves not to let them see her as just a child. Her brother, recalling her earlier request to learn swordsmanship, reminds her that she had to complete her exercises first. Alicia assures him she has, but he remains skeptical. In a burst of frustration, she grabs his sword, kicks a tree, and slices a falling apple in half with precision. Stunned, her brother agrees to spar with her, finally acknowledging her dedication. After a year of training, Alicia reflects on how monotonous sword practice has been. She continues to hone her skills, motivated by her goal of becoming the greatest villainess. Prince Duke, a frequent visitor to the family, appears fond of her, though Alicia doesn't yet realize why. After a training session, Finn, a light magic user, approaches her, inquiring about her progress. She shares that she's only taking a break from training, but conceals her true ambition. Alicia's older brother, noticing Duke's frequent visits, questions his motives. Duke, though uncertain himself, admits his growing fondness for Alicia, marking the beginning of a new dynamic between them. The scene transitions to a gathering of all the noble families, including Alicia's family. Her father mentions that the village of Luana has become increasingly difficult to inhabit, rendering it nearly unlivable. Duke responds by acknowledging the aid they've already sent, but notes that the people there likely won't appreciate it since the village is populated by criminals. Duke then shifts the conversation, suggesting that the Golden Rose should be their priority, as the kingdom and its people need hope. The others agree, emphasizing that they are one of the 5 great noble families. As they take a break, one of the lords mentions that Finn's son wishes for Lady Alicia to return to their house. Finn's father remarks that he had advised her not to cause trouble. They all note how Alicia has become much more polite after once being selfish and uninterested in others. Alicia's father, Arnold, adds that about a year ago, she started spending most of her time in the library, though he isn't sure why. At that moment, Finn thanks Alicia for attending his tea party, mentioning that they have other guests today, including King Albert, who's expected to arrive shortly. Just as the door opens, all the children from the 5 noble families enter, prompting Alicia to wonder what they're doing there. Finn questions why the king hasn't arrived yet, but they assure him the king will arrive soon. Alicia stumbles upon a map and recalls that in the game she used to play, Alicia was exiled to a foreign land by the end of the story. She wonders if this really is the end, as events seem to be unfolding rapidly. When the king finally arrives, Alicia is curious about his presence. She greets him with a polite "Good day, Your Majesty." The king acknowledges her, telling her to raise her head, and expresses that he has heard much about her and has long wanted to speak with her. This is the reason for his visit. He then poses an unexpected question, asking Alicia what she thinks of the state of their kingdom. Nervously, Alicia wonders why he would ask such a complex question to an 8-year-old. She suspects it may be a test to determine her potential as a great villainess. After a moment of thought, Alicia responds that although the kingdom of Dorcas is a great power, it is not without flaws. While the economy might be strong, the wealth is concentrated in the hands of the nobles, creating growing financial inequality. She points to Luana as an example, where people struggle to afford even basic necessities like bread, and warns that resentment toward the nobles is rising, which could spark a revolution. The king agrees they must improve the economy, but admits he's unsure how. He asks Alicia for her thoughts. Alicia suggests they take advantage of the nearby city of Calvra, which possesses valuable gold mines. When the king mentions that Calvra is ruled by Laval, and they can't simply seize the mines, Alicia clarifies that instead of taking them by force, they should support Calvra's independence. This would allow Dorcas to maintain a friendly, superficial relationship while trading with Calvra, ultimately gaining a trading advantage. The king is impressed by Alicia's cunning plan and recognizes it as a method of profiting through manipulation. As the conversation wraps up, the king expresses his pleasure in having spoken with her. After the king departs with his advisor, the advisor informs him that they have located the Golden Rose. Meanwhile, Alicia sits down to enjoy desserts, overjoyed by the variety of sweets. Duke watches her closely during this moment of indulgence. Later, Duke presents Alicia with a birthday gift and apologizes for its late arrival. Alicia opens the present to find a necklace adorned with a small diamond. She thanks him, vowing to treasure it. As Duke leaves, Alicia reflects that diamonds are more valuable in this world than in her previous one, but wonders why Duke gave her such a gift. The scene then shifts to the king, who is addressing a group of people. He reveals that they have discovered the Golden Rose, a rare flower kept by a jeweler in Castletown after the birth of his daughter. The king explains that this daughter is the Saintess, a figure destined to join the ruler of the kingdom and lead the people to peace. The Golden Rose bloomed for the Saintess, and similarly, a blue rose bloomed for Duke. According to legend, when a special rose blooms, it signals the birth of someone destined to guide the kingdom. The king remarks that tough times lie ahead, but with the Saintess and Duke, the kingdom will prosper under their leadership. The advisor adds that the Saintess will unite with a member of the royal family, as foretold, and they must accept their fate. The scene returns to Alicia in the palace, musing about her future as a villainess. She imagines that if Duke ever falls in love with the protagonist and asks her to step aside, she will refuse without hesitation. Alicia is determined to look him in the eye and reject him, as a true villainess would. Soon, she believes, she will emerge as the villainess who will be remembered in history. Alicia was in the library studying a map when she noticed that Lauren's village was close to her. She realized that if she crossed the forest behind their area, she could reach it. Her curiosity grew because everything she had told the king about the village's rough streets and poor people came from books. However, she felt that just reading wasn't enough. She needed to see things for herself. But she knew her father wouldn't let her go, so she had to sneak out at night. But when night came, Alicia pretended to be sleepy and then quietly slipped out, disguised. As she entered the dark forest, she began to feel scared. She reminded herself that the village was protected by a magical barrier, and since she had magic, she should be able to pass through. She knew she had to hurry or she'd have to return before anyone realized she was gone. Eventually, she found the magical barrier and passed through it. Immediately, a foul smell hit her, and she saw a homeless person lying on the ground. She was shocked at how bad things were. The worry that if the person found out she was a noble, he might harm her, she suddenly heard someone ask, "What are you doing here?" Startled, she turned and saw a man. Surprisingly, she didn't feel scared, only warmth. The man invited her to his home and apologized for not being able to offer her a drink. He introduced himself as Will and asked why a noble like her had come to such a place. Alicia was surprised he knew she was a noble. Will explained that her breathing, footsteps, the sound of her clothes, and even her scent gave her away. He added that her presence reminded him of when he could still see, and he used to be around people like her. Alicia asked if he had been a noble. Will explained that he had worked at the royal palace but got into a fight with someone from the upper class. As punishment, they took his eyes and exiled him to this village years ago. Alicia felt sad hearing this and asked how such cruelty could be done. Will asked her name, and she introduced herself as Alicia, explaining that even though she was young, she understood a lot. Will then said, "We study history to make today better than yesterday." He told her that knowledge from books wasn't enough if it wasn't used to improve the future. Alicia was impressed by his wisdom and couldn't believe someone so insightful had been exiled. She asked if he hated nobles. Will admitted he did, but knew one day someone from high society would understand his actions. Alicia shared her dream of becoming the greatest villain in history. Will listened calmly and nodded. When it was time for her to leave, Alicia promised to return, not wanting their relationship to end. She had never met anyone like him before. Will bid her farewell, and she left, determined to visit him again. 2 years passed. Alicia continued her studies and practiced sword fighting. She often visited the village and met with Will. One day, her brothers asked if she wanted to visit the city, and she agreed. Later, she mentioned that her brothers had joined the Magic Academy, where the heroine would also enroll. She believed the heroine would meet the prince and duke, and love would blossom between them. While exploring the city with her brother Juan, Alicia said she wanted to learn horseback riding, something she had long desired. Juan replied that girls shouldn't ride horses and that carriages were safer. As they walked through the bustling city, Alicia thought about how she had grown used to acting like a villainess. So they stopped at a plant shop where Alicia introduced herself to the owner, Paul, as Henry's little sister. Paul explained that his shop specialized in rare medicinal plants and teas, and that his family had forest magic abilities. Alicia was surprised to learn Paul was a lower-ranked noble. Paul shared his love for plants and their healing powers, which inspired him to open the shop. He picked up an herb and began explaining it, but Alicia interrupted, identifying it as Ijosaya, a plant that could lower fevers quickly. Paul was impressed and asked if she was interested in plants. Staying in her villainous persona, Alicia arrogantly said she needed to know such things for her studies. Instead of getting upset, Paul laughed, surprising her with his calm reaction. Later, they met with the Duke, who was jealous they had gone out without him. He insisted they include him next time. He asked Alicia if there was something she wanted to do, and she replied that she wanted to test her sword training, but her family wouldn't let her. The Duke urged her brother to take her, but her brother refused, saying she was too young and a girl. Alicia demanded a logical reason, but when her brother didn't give one, she stormed off, thinking her reaction was very villainous. While walking through the palace, Alicia overheard her brother discussing her stubbornness with their father. They admitted that one day she would do what she wanted on her own, but they couldn't tell her the real reason behind their decisions just yet. When Alicia returned home with her clothes dirty, her maid asked what had happened, but Alicia didn't respond, as she was deep in thought about the tragic events she had seen earlier that day. Later at night, she went back to the village and entered Will's house. She was surprised to find him with the same child from the morning. She asked how he had saved the child, and Will explained that although he had tried his best, it might not be enough. That the child had a fever and was in critical condition. Will explained that this was common in the village, where there was no medical care and many children were left to survive on their own. The boy was an orphan, and Will had taken him and other children under his care. He told Aisha the boy was a genius, even at 6 years old, but with no education, his future seemed bleak in a village full of criminals. So Will assured Alicia it wasn't her fault. By the way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this episode. As Alicia returned home, She thought about the differences between her life of privilege and the harsh realities faced by the villagers. She questioned why she was born into comfort, with access to education and a loving family, while others were not so lucky. So despite her advantages, she felt powerless. She didn't want to save people. That was the heroine's job. Alicia felt disappointed in herself for being afraid and unable to act when the child needed help, especially when she was supposed to be the strongest in the world. But she refused to give up. She was determined to become the greatest villainess in history. The next morning, Alicia visited Paul, the plant seller, and asked for some Josiah, a plant used to treat fevers. Paul asked if someone was sick, and then gave her the plant as a gift, hoping she'd continue visiting his shop. That night, Alicia brought the plant to Will and the boy. Will thanked her, saying the plant would help keep the boy alive, but Alicia still felt helpless. She had thought she was doing everything she could to become the greatest villainess, but her fear had made her question her purpose. From that moment, she committed herself to her studies, determined to become the most powerful villainess ever remembered. The next morning, Alicia headed to the library to focus on mastering magic. As she committed to this goal, a magical aura surrounded her, revealing a hidden section of the library filled with magic books. She was excited and began reading, learning that magic had different levels, with the highest being level 100. Even though the prince and the heroine had surpassed this in one part of the game, Alicia refused to be held back by her role as a villainess. She believed she could reach her true potential by trying. She practiced her magic, making the book float, but it ended up hitting her, reminding her she still had a lot to learn. After several days of practice, Alicia reached level 5 magic and could move all the objects in the library. Proud of her progress, she realized she had used a lot of energy and felt a headache coming on. Later, her father told her that the king had come to speak with her. Accompanied by his son, the king had come to hear her thoughts again. When they met, the king asked if she loved the kingdom. Caught off guard, Alicia struggled to answer. The king then asked her opinion on the kingdom's organization. Alicia honestly expressed her disdain for how nobles were ranked and how many incompetent people held high positions simply because of their status. Alicia apologized to the nobles present, explaining that magical power and political skill were different. She criticized the system for wasting potential. Her words angered some nobles, but the king continued questioning her. He asked if she would be willing to give up her status among the 5 noble families. Alicia answered without hesitation, saying she would gladly give it up, as she was only born into her family by chance. The king, impressed, said she was truly unique. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to catch more episodes like this. After the conversation, Alicia reflected on whether she had answered correctly. Exhausted, she tried to rest but suddenly collapsed with a fever. Duke noticed and quickly carried her to her room to ensure she received proper care. This brings an end to episode 2. The episode begins with Aisha recovering from her fever, now in good health thanks to the medicine. She wakes up and reflects on her thoughts, wondering what Prince Duke's intentions are towards her. She questions whether he sees her as a sister or if he is simply a womanizer. The scene shifts to Aisha going outside, determined to become wicked. She plans to sneak into the Magic Academy, thinking it's the largest building in the area and hoping to find Prince Duke. Although she knows it's not the right time to meet the heroine, she is eager to gather information. However, Aisha realizes that she doesn't even know what the heroine looks like, so she's unsure whether she will recognize her if they meet. Still, she reassures herself that this won't be a problem. As Aisha walks through a large garden, she begins to feel lost, marveling at how maze-like the area is. She finally sneaks closer to the academy, but when she sees workers nearby, she hesitates, worried they might kick her out if they realize she's just a child. At that moment, a girl approaches her and asks if she's lost. Introducing herself as Bliss Carter, a student at the academy, the girl offers to help. Aisha is surprised by the unfamiliar family name Carter and mentions that she runs a bakery in the city. She wonders if Bliss could be the heroine, even though she expected the heroine to be from a more common background. Bliss, in turn, is intrigued by Aisha's appearance and hair color. They introduce themselves and laugh together, with Bliss offering to show Aisha where she needs to go. Aisha is struck by Bliss's angelic smile and kind nature, thinking that everyone must love her. They arrive at the academy, where Bliss mentions finding a lost little girl, but when she turns around, Aisha is gone, hiding nearby. At that moment, Prince Duke arrives and Bliss informs him about the lost girl. Meanwhile, Aisha sneaks further into the building. Since classes have already started, she believes no one will notice her, allowing her to explore. She thinks to herself that she's achieved her goal of sneaking in and can now gather more information, especially about dark magic, which the academy is known for. Inside the academy, the students are discussing a very clever girl who has been solving incredibly difficult problems, describing her as a dark-haired child around 10 years old. They wonder who she is and speculate whether she could outshine Bliss. Aisha then steps up to the board and outlines a strategy, explaining how neighboring countries could be used to isolate the city of Lavero, pretending to help while securing their own interests. The other students are amazed at her intelligence and wonder who she is. Aisha returns home later, overhearing her father talking to Mr. Joan about Liz, mentioning that she could be dangerous. Realizing that Aisha is eavesdropping, Mr. Joan asks her how much of the conversation she heard and threatens to erase her memory using magic. Frightened, Aisha quickly promises not to reveal anything about Liz's supernatural abilities, insisting that Liz doesn't seem like a threat. When asked if she met Liz, Aisha only hints that it was just a hunch and doesn't disclose their meeting. She then excuses herself, saying it's time for bed. In her room, Aisha practices magic and shows remarkable progress in controlling her powers. Her brother enters, telling her that Liz wants to meet with her. Aisha is excited, as she has grown to like Liz. The scene then shifts to a gathering where Aisha is preparing to share her thoughts and ideas. She suddenly recalls a key event in her life, where Prince Duke and Liz grow closer, a relationship that threatens her position as the villainess. She cannot allow this, so she decides to view Liz as her only rival and get closer to both of them. Aisha is furious that a commoner, like Liz, is getting close to Prince Duke. Her pride as the villainess takes over and she resolves to confront Liz, declaring that she is the only one worthy of being with Prince Duke. However, when Liz speaks to Aisha expressing happiness at her efforts and contributions, Aisha becomes frustrated. She feels the need to annoy Liz, so challenges her to perform an elemental magic display on stage. Liz agrees enthusiastically, and everyone present is confident that the performance will be impressive. Aisha became increasingly frustrated when everyone agreed to any suggestion without hesitation. Liz then asked if Aisha would join her on stage for a performance. Aisha declined, explaining that she wasn't a student at the academy. Liz reassured her, saying that it wasn't something she needed to worry about, as they could take care of the details. Despite Liz's encouragement, Aisha refused again, and Duke stepped in, telling Liz not to pressure Aisha, as she clearly didn't want to participate. Liz felt disheartened, thinking she had done something to make Aisha dislike her. Aisha responded, explaining that not everyone gets along and there's no need to force a connection. Liz insisted that if they talked more, they could become close friends. Henry then interrupted, agreeing with Liz, saying that you can't decide you don't get along with someone without getting to know them first. He encouraged Aisha to talk to Liz more. Reluctantly, Aisha agreed to give it a try. Liz began by asking Aisha about her favorite flower. Aisha replied that she liked the lily of the valley because it hides deadly poison behind its beauty. Liz shared that she liked marguerite flowers, then asked Aisha about her favorite sweets. Aisha answered that she liked macarons. Feeling like the questions were dull and unimportant, Aisha used her magic to summon a marguerite flower and handed it to Liz, saying, "It's the perfect flower for a perfect girl like you." Everyone was astonished that Aisha could perform such advanced magic at just 10 years old. Henry quickly told Aisha to return to her room. Aisha felt confused, thinking she had done something wrong but unsure what it was. Later that night, she spoke with Will, telling him she could only perform beginner-level magic. Will was impressed, as most people couldn't use magic until they were 13. He shared a story about someone he knew who was skilled in magic at a young age, but that person had overestimated his abilities and lost control, leading to a disaster. While talking, Gil woke up and Will mentioned that Aisha had brought him medicine. Aisha greeted Gil, but he remained unresponsive. Will apologized, explaining that Gil's personal struggles made him distant. The old man in the room commented on Gil's difficult circumstances, and Aisha thought to herself that she didn't blame him. Aisha recalled Liz's words about marguerite flowers symbolizing honesty and trust, qualities she felt Liz embodied, qualities Aisha believed were the opposite of her own, as she aspired to become a villain. Turning to Gil, Aisha coldly told him that he should die now if he wanted to avoid people forever. She asked if he planned to continue running from everything that frightened him, even suggesting that it might have been better if he hadn't taken the medicine she provided. Gil angrily replied that no one had asked for her help, and Aisha coldly said that by giving him the medicine she had ensured he had no desire to live. She told him that killing him would help her, so he should decide whether to live or die. When Aisha tried to use magic, Gil threw a pillow at her, saying he wouldn't let her kill him. So Aisha replied that as long as he was determined to live, she would stand by his side and help him. She offered to take him with her if he ever wanted to leave. Surprised, Gil asked why she was doing this, and Aisha responded that she was using him, believing he would be useful due to his intelligence. but she reminded him that she was still a villain at heart. Gil's father then remarked that Aisha had a good heart despite her strange ways. Jill agreed, adding that Aisha wasn't what he expected from a noble. The next day, at the palace, the king's aide discussed Aisha's progress. He mentioned that she had changed a lot and wondered if she could be the saintess. The prince quickly dismissed this, insisting that Liz was the true saintess, as no commoner had ever been able to use all magical elements like she could. However, the aide noted that Aisha was exceptional for being able to use magic at the age of 10. The king expressed concern about the risks of such young magic users losing control over their powers. He ordered Joan and Arnold to keep an eye on Aisha and ensure her training was strict enough to prevent her from losing control. Later, Aisha told her brother that Liz had managed to control her magic energy during her performance, with help from Duke and the Academy's teachers. Aisha thought to herself that Liz would become her ultimate rival. Time passed and Aisha continued mastering her magic. Joan informed her that the king suggested speeding up her admission to the Magic Academy, allowing her to enroll when she turned 13. 3 years later, Aisha stood before the king, who praised her maturity and progress. Arnold confirmed that Aisha had maintained control over her magic during the past 3 years. The king, impressed by her progress to level 80, agreed to her admission but asked her to monitor Liz while at the academy. The king speaks to Alyssa and expresses his desire for her to act as a watcher for Liz. Alyssa, however, is confused about what he means. The king explains the legend of the Saint Girl, a beautiful girl who does not feel pain and works with the royal family to bring prosperity to the kingdom of Dorcas. He tells Alyssa that they believe Liz Cather is the saint of this land and mentions that he has heard Alyssa met Liz. Alyssa confirms this and describes Liz as a kind girl. The commander hands Alyssa some documents about the village of Luana. After reading them, Alyssa is shocked and exclaims that what she's read is crazy nonsense. The commander explains that if Liz is to work with their government as a saint, she must be able to make rational decisions. He asks Alyssa to guide Liz in becoming a respected saint. Alyssa is stunned, wondering if this task will make her the best person instead of being evil, despite her goal being evil. At this point, one of the ministers objects to assigning Alyssa the task. He argues that the Academy's current state makes it dangerous and that Alyssa is unsuitable. The commander counters by saying that many people love Alyssa and that this admiration has turned into affection. He mentions that no one at the Academy opposes her anymore. The minister points out, however, that some still criticize her and might act foolishly, leading to consequences like hatred or ostracism. The commander then turns to Alyssa, saying she can refuse the task and that there's no need for her to play the role of the villain. Upon hearing the word villain, Alyssa realizes that she would indeed become a villain if she accepts the task. Without thinking, she accepts the task with delight, stating that she strives to become the greatest villain of all time. Later that night, Alyssa tells her friend Will about the story. Will asks her what she will gain from this, and she responds that it's for free, adding that she made the king agree to her conditions. She tells Will that they will leave the village, including a boy named Jill, who will accompany her. The scene shifts to the commander meeting with some ministers, discussing Alyssa's conditions. They recall when she mentioned bringing Gil from the village of Luana to the academy. At that moment, the prince and the others are shocked that Alyssa visited that village. She explains that she has been visiting it for years, stunning the man who couldn't contain his emotions. Alyssa tells them that she met Gil when he was 6 years old, after his father had been killed, and Gil himself was about to meet the same fate. She says that by the grace of God, Gil recovered, and she describes him as a talented boy who would be unmatched if given a proper education. The story shifts back to Alyssa and Gil, where she tells him that he will leave the village as her servant. Jill is shocked and questions how this is possible, as those who serve in the royal palace must be of noble lineage. Alyssa responds by telling him not to think about it, and that he is with her from now on. Will comments that no one has ever managed to leave the village before, but Alyssa reassures him that this is just the beginning, and that soon the village will gain attention. She also asks Grandpa Will if he wants to leave, offering to ask the king for help, but Will declines, saying he is a criminal whose fate was sealed the moment he arrived in the village. As Alyssa leaves, someone grabs her by her clothes, and she prepares to draw her sword. However, she finds a girl covered in wounds who pleads for help. Alyssa quickly carries the girl to a nearby place, realizing that many people are watching her. Undeterred, she uses her power to purify water and starts treating the girl. At this point, Jill and Grandpa Will arrive, and Alyssa casts a barrier spell to prevent anyone from seeing them. She begins treating the girl's severe burns, but the cells in the girl's right leg from the knee down are dead. Jill warns that the injury may be too severe to save her, and Grandpa Will adds that the girl may die soon. This motivates Alyssa to use her healing powers to their fullest, healing the girl's body, but the cells in her leg remain dead. Alyssa realizes the leg could threaten the girl's life, so she draws her sword and amputates the leg. When the girl wakes up and asks where her leg is, Alyssa explains that she had to remove it to save her life and advises her to be grateful. The girl introduces herself as Rebecca, and Alyssa tells her that she will become her personal tomb. Afterward, Alyssa removes the barrier and informs the villagers of what she has done. If you're enjoying it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more anime recaps. Things continue as Alyssa asks Rebecca to gather the opinions of the villagers because she holds an important position. Alyssa plans to use the saint as an excuse for her actions. However, Gil, puzzled by this, asks what she means by using the saint as an excuse. Alyssa explains that she intends to go to Luana to become better acquainted with the saint, acting as her mentor. She assures Gil not to worry, as she will be the mastermind behind the scenes. Grandpa Will tells Alyssa that after hearing her plan, he no longer wants to leave the village and wishes to stay to see what unfolds. The next morning, Grandpa Will bids them farewell, and both Alyssa and Gil leave the village. As they enter the city, Gil is amazed by its beauty and feels happy to return. Later, Alyssa talks to her father, informing him that she is leaving. He asks her if she regrets her decision, but she replies that she regrets nothing. Alyssa then questions him about why she hasn't taken the duel test, which he promised. Her father, who is the king, explains that she is so skilled in swordsmanship that she doesn't need to take the test. The scene shifts to Alyssa entering the academy, where many people talk to her. Jill lingers behind a group of girls who had been speaking to Liz. The girls notice Alyssa and ask if she is Albert's younger sister, commenting on how much she resembles her. One of the girls grabs a strand of Alyssa's hair, admiring its beauty. In response, Alyssa slaps the girl's hand and rebukes her for being rude and obnoxious. At that moment, Liz appears with 4 young men by her side. The girl who was reprimanded by Alyssa complains to Liz, accusing Alyssa of hitting her and calling them obnoxious. Alyssa defends herself, saying the girls were obnoxious because of their overly friendly behavior. Liz tells Alyssa that it's no reason to hurt someone and asks her to apologize. Alyssa refuses and walks away. Alyssa enjoys the situation, thinking that such actions will help her become a villain. However, she suddenly vanishes, and Duke, using teleportation magic, captures her. The prince, Duke, approaches her fondly, taking hold of her necklace which he had given her when she was a child. Alyssa worries that he might break it, which would embarrass her, but instead, Duke sniffs it and whispers in her ear affectionately. He places his hand on her head, telling her she is not a villain and will not be able to commit evil. Alyssa pushes him away and quickly leaves, suspecting that Duke, a known womanizer, had improper intentions. After running away, Gil finds Alyssa and realizes she is very angry. The next morning, Liz is surrounded by admirers while Alyssa and her servant Gil enter the scene. They see that Liz and the others are drinking tea. Alyssa, thinking of something wicked, grabs an article written by Liz and tells her it was well received. Liz explains that the article suggests removing the wall surrounding the village of Luana, a symbol of poverty, to allow the villagers to live happier lives. She believes that everyone's happiness will eliminate inequality. Alyssa throws the article away, calling it shallow, unrealistic, and boring. This angers everyone, but Liz cautiously asks Alyssa why she finds the article unrealistic. Alyssa explains that equality is impossible, and that Liz's idea is nothing more than a fairy tale. She argues that breaking the wall will not eliminate inequality based on lineage, and that without proper measures, public order will deteriorate. Liz questions Alyssa's harsh view of the villagers, asking if Alyssa truly believes they will cause trouble. Alyssa responds that it's arrogant to claim that the hatred felt by the oppressed can simply be eliminated. Liz argues that tolerance will bring peace, but Alyssa counters that idealism won't change reality. She tells Liz that her article lacks a practical approach and that no one had pointed out its flaws because they were too busy flattering her. Alyssa continues by criticizing the group, saying they are useless and merely indulge Liz. Liz, maintaining her composure, tells Alyssa not to insult her friends. Alyssa, however, presses further, pointing out Liz's talents and magical abilities, which she claims symbolize inequality. Alyssa explains that while she doesn't think everyone needs to be equal, striving for improvement through competition is important. She adds that if people stop being praised for their strengths in the name of equality, it would be unjust. Liz, silent and unable to respond, admits that she wants to create a world where everyone is happy. Alyssa, disappointed, remarks that she was hoping for a more constructive debate and leaves the room. Liz's friends try to comfort her, but Liz acknowledges that everything Alyssa said was meant for her own good. Later, Alyssa reflects on the confrontation, feeling satisfied that she had thoroughly humiliated Liz. She vows to stop Liz in her tracks, proving her commitment to becoming a true villain. This brings an end to our episode. The scene shifts to Grandpa Noel, where Alyssa and Jill approach Rebecca to discuss the villagers' stories. Rebecca tells them that, although things are going well, she has noticed that negative feelings are dominant among the villagers. She adds that some of the most aggressive individuals talk about looting everything they see if they leave the village. Alyssa cautions Rebecca, emphasizing that the situation is dangerous and reminding her to prioritize her safety. She points out that, given her injury, Rebecca would struggle to escape if anything went wrong. Rebecca reassures her that everything will be fine, saying that, since the villagers know she has Alyssa's support, they wouldn't dare act against her. Alyssa finds this amusing and remarks that it makes her feel like a true villain. Rebecca continues, explaining to Alyssa that everyone in the village was born there and has resigned themselves to an unchanging life. But recently, there is someone who, though they might have ordinarily died, is still alive and has sparked the villagers' hope for change. Rebecca believes that if transformation comes, it should be through the villagers themselves. She reflects on a saying, noting that God does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves, and encourages them to start by transforming their own lives and families. Alyssa agrees, mentioning that Liz's influence has significantly increased public interest in the village. However, she admits they're not at a stage where specific actions can be taken. Grandpa Noel advises patience, reminding them that meaningful change takes time. Rebecca then requests Alyssa's help in providing the villagers with a few crops from outside, as they believe the outside world has a variety of produce. Alyssa declines, playfully remarking that she's a villain and doesn't do good deeds for anyone. Jill quietly suggests to Rebecca that she negotiate with Alyssa, describing her as a bit eccentric. The scene then shifts to Alyssa riding to Luana. Her brother, Henry, notices her and comments that she seems to be taking on too much. She's surprised to see him alone and asks about their other brother, Alan. Henry admits that he's grown distant from Alan. Despite their closeness before, Alan talks mostly about Liz since they joined the academy. Henry then questions the reasons why Alyssa dislikes Liz so strongly and seems intent on becoming a villain. He wonders if it's because she's jealous of Liz's popularity, loves control, or simply wants attention even if it means spreading chaos. Reflecting on her past conversations with Liz, Alyssa recalls how Liz's independence boosted her own confidence, even though others accused her of starting fights. When she spoke with her twin brother about her rivalry with Liz, he asked if there was a specific reason for it. Alyssa responded vaguely, smiling and saying, "Nothing." Accepting her answer, her brother handed her an invitation to the king's upcoming tea party, informing her that Liz would also be attending. At the tea party, Alyssa's brothers advised her to avoid saying anything unnecessary. Upon arrival, they see Liz in the meeting room, seated with Albert, Alan, Henry, and Alicia. Alicia warmly welcomes Liz, but Vin notes that he can't quite tell if Liz and Alicia are friends or rivals. Just then, the king enters, thanking everyone for their loyalty to the Duke and inviting them to enjoy the refreshments. Liz expresses gratitude, and Alicia, feeling envious, notes Liz's proximity to the king. She resolves to excel in the Saintess test, feeling that achieving the true ending is crucial for her future. However, she has always struggled with the complex answers expected of the ideal heroine, which makes it challenging. During the party, Liz comments to the king that events are unfolding as they did in the game, noting that many characters present are the same ones who could have been defeated. Alicia observes that the game events seem to reflect real life, as her relationships with her brothers feel tense, much like in the game. Henry behaves somewhat differently, while Jill and Eric appear to harbor dislike toward her. Vin and Curtis remain polite yet distant with both Liz and Alicia, as if adhering to the game's storyline. However, the Duke behaves unusually, giving the heroine a warm smile instead of his typical reserved demeanor. The king speaks to Alicia, asking if she remembers her prediction about Doran's economic challenges from 3 years ago, when she had first infiltrated the academy. Alicia realizes that the king is aware of her past analysis, where she had accurately predicted Doran's economic troubles. He praises her foresight, surprised at her insight from years ago. Liz, feeling concerned, asks if Doran is now bankrupt, since their economic measures appeared to be effective. Alicia explains that while Doran's production and purchasing power were out of balance, the measures implemented 4 years ago were only temporary fixes, as Liz had suggested. She points out that anyone could have foreseen Doran reaching a breaking point 3 years ago, and relying solely on short-term solutions without considering future implications is one of Liz's weaknesses. Alicia emphasizes that Doran's potential collapse cannot be ignored. Liz proposes an alliance with Doran, insisting that sincerity is essential in helping them. Alicia challenges this, arguing that if sincerity were enough, Doran wouldn't be facing bankruptcy in the first place. The scene opens with Jill feeling annoyed at Alicia's tone, perceiving that she constantly contradicts Liz. Alicia ignores Jill's reaction, continuing to argue that Doran's weakened state makes it a prime candidate for dependency, hinting at invasion. She points out that their kingdom's main concern should not be the small state of Doran, but rather Laval, a larger nation with a complicated relationship with them. Alicia argues that occupying Doran could be risky if it leads to Laval seizing the opportunity to act against them. Eric agrees, mentioning that his father has spoken of rising tensions near their borders with Laval. Liz then asks Alicia about the sentiments of the people of Doran. Alicia advises that wishing for the happiness of a neighboring country is naive if it puts their own at risk. If Liz truly wants to help, she should focus on aiding Doran in building an internal economic recovery. She suggests that Doran could improve its economy by marketing its local specialties. Liz reflects that Doran is known for its potatoes, although they differ from those in their own country and face low demand abroad. She suggests they modify these products to increase their appeal and raise profits if they are produced in larger quantities. The others praise her idea, and the king commends the wisdom of the younger generation among his subjects. Alicia, however, feels that everything is revolving around Liz, thinking to herself that she can't handle this attention on her rival. As she wanders the castle, she notices portraits of the royal family and spots a figure that resembles Duke as she first knew him, though his skin tone is different. Another familiar face catches her attention in a different portrait. Duke approaches and explains that these are portraits of his father and grandfather, noting that he inherited his skin tone from his mother. Alicia asks if his father had an older brother, commenting on how unusual it seems that the current ruler is not the eldest. Duke deflects, suggesting that it's a topic better left undiscussed, and offers to escort her out. Alicia then asks if he prefers spending time with Liz, adding that he might be watching her to prevent any trouble. Duke denies this, clarifying that she's just lost in directing her to the exit. Alicia finds Duke's smile unusually sincere, different from the game's depiction where he only smiled at the heroine. The next morning, the scene shifts to Alicia in training. Jill watches her, commenting that he doesn't understand how she manages to train so diligently every morning. Henry approaches, asking Jill if he's originally from Luana, as his attachment to Luana seemed evident at the Garden of Flowers. Henry points out that Jill appears afraid of everyone except for Allie, remarking that she's becoming his weakness. He warns Jill to hide his emotions if he wishes to remain close to her, adding that his sister Ina despises Allie, and someone capable needs to be around to keep her in check. Alicia joins the conversation, claiming that she doesn't hate Liz and that her dream is to become a villain, so she has no interest in disrupting Liz's life. Henry laughs, joking that he had no idea his sister had such a sense of humor, and tells her that Liz would make an ideal target if she truly wanted to get in someone's way. He remarks that Liz would be the heroine if this were a fantasy, with her charm and special qualities. Jill speculates that there could be something magical about Alicia, observing how she seems to turn every situation in her favor. Henry dismisses the idea, explaining that while there is magic that can influence others' minds temporarily, it's impossible to maintain such control over time. Alicia admits she's unfamiliar with all forms of magic, but wonders if there could be a spell that allows such influence. As they continue, Alicia ponders to herself, admitting she's unsure if Liz is truly manipulative. Liz's innocent, surface-level personality perfectly matches her portrayal as the game's heroine. She reflects that she herself differs significantly from her game character, who revealed Liz's lack of talent to expose her and have her expelled. Wanting to be a formidable villain, Alicia refined her powers and feels stronger. In the game, Henry and Alan were always together, Duke was devoted to the heroine, and Luana was mentioned only in passing. Suddenly, Jill grabs her arm, urging her to run. Before she can react, someone strikes her from behind. Alicia awakens in a dim, dusty storage room, bound and unable to move. She's shocked. Villains were never kidnapped in the game. She then sees Jill, badly injured, and feels heartbroken seeing his condition. She looks at her captors with fierce anger.
As Alicia realized that Jill had been unexpectedly captured, she knew this was a twist that had never happened in the game. Bravely, she tried using magic to escape, but her captors had placed a collar on her, blocking her powers and leaving her vulnerable. Seeing her defenseless, the thugs used threats to intimidate her. Alicia, now at a clear disadvantage, struggled as the thieves, seeing she held no ransom value, decided to end her life. In a moment of fierce determination, She managed to knock one of them out, buying a second to urge Jill to escape. However, escape wasn't possible. Jill had a broken leg, leaving Alicia to question why all of this was happening, as there had been no kidnappings in the game's storyline. Refusing to surrender, Alicia crawled to a nearby shelf, freeing herself and grabbing a weapon. With this new advantage, she took down her attackers, leaving their leader to decide whether to run or face her. Just as he swung his sword to strike, Alicia skillfully blocked with her knives, forcing him to flee. But he wasn't quick enough. Alicia was having a surprisingly good day. She caught him, prepared to end it, only to be interrupted by a strange spell from Lise, who mistakenly thought Alicia was attacking an innocent. Alicia tried to explain who the real threat was, but her opponent used the distraction to draw another knife, nearly costing her life. Thankfully, a nearby prince stepped in, taking the blow for her and swiftly knocking out the thug. Guards arrived moments later to arrest the criminals. Though Duke was injured, he brushed off his wounds as mere scratches. As Alicia recounted the incident, Henry tended to Jill, bringing calm to the scene. Duke, seeing Alicia shaken, announced he was taking a break. This marked the end of the video with a reminder to viewers to subscribe. Despite Jill's insistence that the thugs were the aggressors, her brother questioned if there hadn't been a way to handle things without violence. Frustrated, Alicia asked if he truly refrained from defending his loved ones if they were in danger. He admitted he would act, leaving Alicia feeling as if she didn't know him anymore. Lise continued arguing that violence was never the answer, which Alicia found absurd after nearly losing her life. Lise reassured her, claiming that nothing would have happened if she just had faith. Alicia doubted, wondering what kind of hero the game expected her to be. Just as Lise credited Duke's intervention to her faith, a chill filled the air as His Majesty himself intervened. He firmly stated that faith had nothing to do with it and supported Alicia's bravery. He praised her courage, adding that without her, Jill might not have survived, dismissing Lisa's ideas as too idealistic for their reality. Curtis arrived to heal Alicia's injuries, lifting her spirits, though she had lost a tooth in the struggle. Much to Duke's internal annoyance, Lise offered to help, but the prince rejected her, leaving her to reflect on her misunderstandings. Alicia partly understood Lisa's reluctance toward violence, but challenged her, asking why it was so hard for her to look people in the eyes when speaking. Idealism was easy, Alicia thought, for those who lived sheltered lives. Her friends, noticing her frustration, called her over in support. Duke, however, was still upset, sweeping Alicia into his arms to properly care for her, leaving Lise wondering if he might have feelings for Alicia, a thought she found slightly troubling. Meanwhile, Duke ignored Alicia's protests, urging her to avoid taking such risks, confessing that he felt a painful fear at the thought of losing her. Alicia wondered if Duke really did care for her, but reminded herself he was destined to be with the heroine. Her heart conflicted. Her heartbeat raced, yet she felt a calm relief as she drifted to sleep. When she woke, she found Duke tied up beside her in a strange bed, feeling flustered but unsure of what had happened. Duke teased her about a kiss, but they were interrupted as Jill entered unannounced. Startled, Alicia pushed Duke off the bed, leaving him on the floor. Henry, who didn't oppose a relationship between his sister and Duke, reminded him to keep it respectful. Duke insisted nothing improper had occurred, though Jill questioned his missing shirt. Time passed, and Jill shared that, thanks to Henry's magic, his leg had healed completely. Meanwhile, they noticed Alicia's missing tooth from the earlier fight. Jill wanted to keep it as a keepsake, cherishing it as a reminder of the day's events. Alicia reassured him he'd been helpful, but Jill still felt guilty for not being able to protect her. Henry and Duke praised Jill for his loyalty and spirit, while Jill kept the tooth, a symbol of their eventful day. During the debrief, Henry shared that he had identified the culprit behind the attack, an academy student named Nail Johnson, whom Alicia faintly recalled. He reminded Lisa about Nail, and this left Alicia feeling uneasy, sensing she might need to deal with this follower. But Henry assured her that might not be necessary. Duke had nearly beaten Nail to death the last time they met. Duke also explained that the royal family had imposed severe punishment on Nail's family, as removing an anti-magic collar was a serious offense. Alicia felt a pang of disappointment, frustrated that her reputation as a villainess hadn't helped in any way. Duke then confided that his father had orchestrated the attack, seeing it as an opportunity for Lise to grow under pressure. When Duke confronted those involved, he discovered that the king had even tipped off Lise about where trouble might arise, treating it as a simple test for her. Jill found this strange, thinking it wasn't right for a saint to be treated with such importance. But even Alicia understood that, for better or worse, Lisa's role was vital. Legend said that saints had always saved the kingdom, making her a perfect obstacle in Alicia's path. Feeling uneasy, Duke apologized to Alicia, explaining that his father was so obsessed with the prophecy that he would go to any length to see it fulfilled. Jill then asked if Duke planned to marry Lise, since the prophecy foretold the prince would be betrothed to the saint. Though Alicia knew this, and since Duke cared for her, she understood he was bound to a greater fate. But Duke surprised her by dismissing fate, declaring that he alone would decide his true happy ending. Jill apologized for prying, explaining he simply wanted to understand why Alicia was so drawn to Duke, especially if he was meant for Lise. When Jill asked if his boldness toward royalty might cause trouble, Duke reassured him that status didn't matter. What mattered was that both he and Jill wanted to protect Alicia. Back in the library, Alicia thought about how to become stronger to prevent incidents like today's. She tried creating a spell above level 80, but it proved extremely challenging. Jill, watching nearby, told her she didn't need to push herself so hard. But Alicia, as a villainess, refused to settle for less than her full potential. Jill teased that she could make things easier by marrying the prince, but Alicia brushed him off, determined to earn her own achievements. Just then, a servant informed Alicia that her father wanted to speak with her. He told her that her role in guarding Lise had ended, though Alicia wished to continue. Her father, deeply concerned for her safety after she nearly lost her life, reminded her that she was only 13 and it might be best to wait 2 more years before taking on such risks again. Determined, Alicia pleaded for one last chance, insisting that her mistake was minor and she could protect herself with her magic. But her father reminded her that Lisa's elemental skills were all over level 80. Seeing that Alicia wouldn't back down, he proposed a challenge. If she could raise her magic level to 90, she could continue her duties. Seeing this as a challenge she couldn't ignore, Alicia accepted and immediately set off to a secluded house to focus on her training. With intense dedication, she aimed to reach level 90 as quickly as possible and secure her place at the Magical Academy.
Alicia had spent a full month locked away in the annex, completely devoted to her studies. Each day, a maid would bring her meals but could only leave them at the edge of the magical barrier that surrounded the annex. The food had to be infused with magic for it to pass through the barrier. Alicia was resolute in her commitment to remain undisturbed, refusing any interruptions to her intense training. The maid often felt a tinge of sadness for Alicia, imagining she might be struggling in isolation. Jill, however, reminded her that feeling sentimental would not help the situation. Jill, a humble and well-liked young boy, lived modestly despite being permitted to eat the same meals as Alicia. Having grown up in poverty, he considered even the simplest meals a luxury. The servants, touched by his background, frequently shared their portions with him. Jill felt deeply fortunate to have been chosen from Luana village to serve Alicia and worked tirelessly to meet her expectations. Eager to improve himself, Jill spent hours in the library, immersing himself in studies. One day, Lord Williams visited him and gifted him a magical potion that would allow Jill to return to Luana whenever needed. The Lord expressed his gratitude for Jill's dedication and assistance to Alicia.
Jill was taken aback to hear Lord Williams speak so warmly, as he had always thought of him as stern, especially after his decision to lock Alicia in the annex for her training. Even Lord Williams's wife had criticized him, describing the goal of level 90 he set for Alicia as borderline child abuse. Lord Williams admitted he had never expected Alicia to take her training so seriously. He had set the goal impossibly high, hoping she would abandon her dream of becoming the Saint's Watcher. Instead, it had only fueled her determination. Jill reassured Lord Williams, telling him that Alicia was strong and fully capable of reaching her goals. He encouraged the Lord to have more faith in her abilities. Nevertheless, Lord Williams remained concerned about Alicia's association with Liz Cather. He believed this connection posed a threat to his daughter. He had witnessed how his eldest son, Albert, had changed after meeting Liz and doubted Albert's suitability as the family's heir. After an attack on Alicia, the king himself visited Lord Williams and gave him permission to relieve her of her duties as the Watcher. However, the king subtly hinted that he still wanted Alicia to continue her work. Jill harbored skepticism about Liz and the legend of the saint, questioning whether people truly believed she could save the kingdom. Lord Williams admitted that the idea of saving the kingdom was vague, but acknowledged Liz's extraordinary magical abilities. He believed Liz's talents made her invaluable and expected her to serve the kingdom once she graduated. Alicia, too, was destined for the same path. The kingdom could not ignore individuals with exceptional gifts like theirs. Lord Williams confessed his inner conflict. As a father, he wanted to protect Alicia, but as the head of a noble family, his responsibility was to use her talents for the kingdom's benefit. Jill, however, understood that Alicia would never allow herself to be treated as a tool. She had often criticized the nobles for depending on a young girl while neglecting the potential of those without magic. Alicia's goal was to train Jill into someone she could trust and rely on. Jill resolved to remain by her side, no matter what. Back in Lawana village, Rebecca, Will, and the children were thriving, thanks to the crops Alicia had helped them cultivate. When a thief attempted to steal from the fields, Nate intervened and stopped him. Despite Alicia's contributions, Nate remained suspicious of her intentions, accusing her of helping the village out of selfishness. Rebecca disagreed, arguing that Alicia's efforts had gone beyond mere handouts. Alicia had taught the villagers how to grow their own food, fostering self-reliance and independence. Meanwhile, in the king's office, Duke listened as his father, the king, expressed frustration over Lawana's history. The village had long been used to isolate people with magic, subjecting them to unjust treatment. Liz had written an essay exposing the humanitarian crisis, which had garnered public sympathy. Building on Liz's ideas, Alicia had proposed detailed plans to reform the village, including better utilization of land and mana resources. The king tasked Duke with leading these reforms, trusting in his son's intellect and capabilities. Duke accepted the challenge, understanding that his father was already burdened with many responsibilities. 6 months after Alicia began her isolation, the annex lit up with sparks of dark magic. Henry visited to observe her progress. Jill remembered a conversation with Alicia where she admitted she would never be able to surpass Liz Cather, no matter how hard she worked. Despite this, Alicia remained steadfast in her determination to grow stronger. She believed that even if hard work was not always rewarded, the effort itself was what mattered most. Henry was taken aback by how determined his little sister, Alicia, was to compete with Liz. Liz was a true prodigy, capable of casting multiple instances of spells that most struggled to cast even once. Despite this, Henry believed Alicia could eventually match her. At school, Duke felt disheartened, knowing Alicia still had not returned. The students whispered among themselves, speculating that Duke must be miserable because he hated Alicia and feared her return to the academy. Hearing their comments, Henry shot them a glare. Duke was frustrated that the other students failed to understand Alicia, yet felt entitled to gossip about her. If they had continued, he would have seen to it that they were expelled. Curtis arrived, playfully urging Duke not to look so intimidating, as their school life should be cheerful and harmonious. Henry expressed his frustration about the rumors surrounding Alicia, explaining that no matter how hard he tried to defend her, no one believed him. Instead, they dismissed his efforts as those of a kind brother covering for her. Curtis mentioned a particularly persistent rumor that Alicia had visited Duke at night. This saddened Duke, who reflected that if he had known the rumors would escalate from him staying overnight to care for her, he might have orchestrated an undeniable resolution to silence them. Liz then appeared, noticing Duke's gloomy mood. She suggested that some tea and pastries might cheer him up. However, Duke only grew more irritated when he overheard the four boys trailing behind Liz gushing over her cakes, claiming they could brighten anyone's day. Meanwhile, some girls nearby commented on how wonderful Duke and Liz looked together and suggested that Liz's presence helped Duke forget Alicia's troublesome nature. Duke's frustration mounted. Liz offered him a cake she had lovingly made, but he brushed her off, saying he wasn't in the mood, and left. Eric reassured Liz not to take it personally, while Albert remarked that Duke might be tense because of his foolish sister. Liz remained unbothered, confident she could bring Duke's smile back, which delighted her admirers. As Duke walked away, he overheard more students speaking poorly of Alicia, which prompted another icy glare. Finn, noticing Duke's agitation, urged him to keep moving and playfully commented on how fascinating the situation had become. Finn pointed out the irony of the girls' behavior. They used to bully Liz mercilessly, yet now they idolized her, claiming to adore her. Duke offered no response and continued walking. Curtis thanked Finn for helping to de-escalate the tension, admitting he was struggling to keep the student council running smoothly. Finn, however, seemed to enjoy watching the drama unfold. By the water fountain, Duke approached a mysterious pink-haired girl named Mel and asked her to investigate Liz, suspecting there was some underlying cause for why everyone suddenly adored her. 2 years passed. Henry handed Jill some sweets, explaining that they were good for brain function. Alicia, however, always preferred macarons as her treat of choice. During this time, there was less than a year left before Liz Cather's graduation, and Henry assumed Alicia would have completed their father's challenge much sooner. On Alicia's 15th birthday, her father tried to speak with her about returning to the academy. However, she dismissed him, explaining that she was finally making progress in her training. Later, a maid informed everyone that Alicia had completed her training. Jill rushed to the annex and found the magical barrier gone. Inside, he discovered Alicia, who was surprised to see how much taller he had grown in her absence. Alicia was at home when Jill arrived, and Alicia commented on how much he had changed. She can barely recognize him. Awkwardly, Jill admitted it had been a long time and struggled to express himself. Alicia gently placed a hand on his shoulder and suggested they head to Luana Village. Jill agreed, and the two set off together. As they walked through the forest, Hale asked if Alicia wanted to visit her home first, since everyone there was eager to see her and ensure she was safe. Alicia insisted on going straight to Luana's village, explaining she hadn't been there in years and had already learned what she needed to know. Hale reassured her that the village was stable and safe, though he couldn't help but wonder about her urgency. When they arrived, Alicia was amazed at how much the village had changed. She couldn't believe it was the same Luana she remembered. The once quiet village was now thriving thanks to the hard-working efforts of the villagers led by Rebecca. Nate, the villager's guard, greeted them, introducing himself and thanking Alicia for her contributions. He mentioned that for the first time, there had been no child deaths from hunger this year, thanks to her. However, Nate admitted he was skeptical about her sudden return. Acknowledging his doubts, Alicia agreed it was fair not to blindly trust her. Nate confronted her about her long absence and warned against any manipulation of the villagers. In response, Alicia challenged him to a duel, proposing it as a way to earn mutual understanding. Though hesitant, Nate eventually agreed after she provoked him, warning her not to regret it if she got hurt. The duel ended quickly, with Alicia defeating Nate and leaving him on the ground. Rebecca arrived to find Alicia pointing her sword at Nate, who admitted his defeat and acknowledged her skill. Some villagers suspected Alicia had used magic to win, but Nate reassured them she had fought fairly. Alicia explained that her noble upbringing gave her access to exceptional training and resources, which had honed her abilities. She suggested using her skills for the village's benefit to prove her genuine intentions. Later, Alicia and Hale visited Grandpa Will. She greeted him warmly and revealed she had reached level 91 in dark magic. To everyone's astonishment, she cast a spell to restore Will's vision by giving him one of her eyes. Will was both amazed and furious, asking if she understood the gravity of her sacrifice. Alicia calmly explained that she knew he'd never ask for it, but she wanted him to see again. Overwhelmed, Will thanked her and marveled at her mastery of ancient magic. As they left, Hale asked if Alicia's eye felt okay. She admitted it felt strange, but didn't hurt, and marveled at the power of magic. When Hale asked how others would react to her losing an eye, Alicia said her father is overprotective and might cry, but as soon as he found out, he faints. Once he regained consciousness, he scolded her, but was also proud of her for surpassing the 90th magic level. Despite his worries, he promised to support her in her endeavors. Later, Gil gifted Alicia an eye patch he had made for her. She thanked him and joked about needing an outfit to match it. She then announced her decision to return to the academy after 2 years. When she arrived, her stunning new look left everyone speechless. Smiling, Alicia remarked that her villainous return deserved a grand entrance. Soon after, a girl approached her, surprised, and said she thought Alicia was not coming back to school. Jill sees an unfamiliar girl and asks who she is. The girl avoids the question, instead urging him to leave the academy immediately. Before Jill can react, Alicia steps in, confidently announcing her official return to the academy next week. She explains her presence today is simply out of respect, and then guesses the girl must be one of Liz's devoted followers. The girl, impressed by Alicia's sharp observation, confirms it and brings up Alicia's supposed rivalry with Liz. She suggests Alicia should acknowledge her flaws to avoid future embarrassment. Calmly, Alicia challenges her to point out these flaws. The girl criticizes Alicia's bold outfit, claiming it contrasts with Liz's focus on inner qualities over appearances. Alicia fires back, pointing out the hypocrisy of judging her looks while claiming appearances don't matter. Their exchange heats up as Alicia critiques the girl's messy hair, short skirt, and crooked ribbon, suggesting these outward flaws reflect her lack of inner organization. The girl defends herself, saying Liz told her she was beautiful just the way she is. Alicia counters by asking why, if she's so confident, she hides her face with her hair. Before things escalate further, Liz arrives, surprised to see Alicia. The girl, named Jean, complains to Liz about Alicia's remarks. Liz reassures Jean of her beauty and turns to Alicia, acknowledging their 2-year estrangement. She apologizes for past misunderstandings that might have caused Alicia to leave the academy. However, Alicia dismisses the apology, explaining her absence was due to personal reasons. Liz thanks Alicia, expressing gratitude for saving her from the isolation she had endured, as it was something Liz had long wished for. Liz has always been known for effortlessly achieving her desires, but Alicia confronts her with harsh words. Alicia accuses Liz of being happy only because everything is going her way and warns her not to overestimate herself. Alicia tells Liz that she knows Liz hates her. She recalls how 2 years ago, Liz only restrained her when she faced the highwayman, even though Liz could have restrained both of them. Alicia believes that Liz's actions were driven by hatred and a desire to see her die. Liz denies the accusation, asking Alicia if tarnishing her reputation would make her feel better. Alicia responds that, on the contrary, she would prefer Liz to take the situation seriously. She criticizes Liz for speaking without taking real action and achieving success through opportunism. Alicia questions Liz's methods, doubting their reliability and impact. Alicia then leaves, leaving Liz stunned. When John later asks what happened, Alicia replies calmly that she only told Liz she didn't need saving. Alicia emphasizes that she lives by her principles, even if it means being hated by everyone. She exits, leaving Liz and John behind. The scene shifts to Prince Duke, who is reading in his room. His guard interrupts with news of unexpected events, but Duke seems indifferent. Meanwhile, Alicia and Gil are praised by their teacher, John, for their academic excellence. John suggests that Alicia could excel in higher-level classes, while Gil is recognized for his achievements despite being only 11 years old. Alicia attributes Gil's success to his hard work and training. Later, as they walk together, Gil asks if it's true that commoners have limits in magic they cannot surpass. Alicia explains that commoners are deprived of magic, which excludes them from educational and career opportunities. However, noble families ensure their own education and rarely employ non-nobles. She tells Gil that action against this aristocratic system is necessary. Suddenly, Duke appears, startling Alicia. Annoyed, she tells him not to appear unannounced. Duke questions her, mentioning rumors that she donated one of her eyes to someone. When Alicia refuses to discuss it, Duke becomes frustrated, insisting that it's his business because of how much he has cared for her over the past 2 years. He accuses her of playing the role of a villainess for her own amusement. Alicia coldly tells Duke to stay away, as she never asked for his care. Hurt by her words, Duke apologizes and leaves. Jill, observing this exchange, asks Alicia why she's behaving differently. Alicia responds that she's shaping herself into a villainess. Sejal disapproves, calling her actions silly and cruel, particularly for breaking Duke's heart. Alicia reflects on Sejal's words and begins to feel saddened as she recalls her happy memories with Duke. The next day, Alicia stands nervously in front of her new classroom. She feels shy about going in. Gil, noticing her hesitation, suggests they skip the lesson, but Alicia refuses. She doesn't want to waste all the upset to see Alicia there. Their disapproval only grows when Alicia announces that she has been transferred to their class. She arrogantly claims that the lower grades were too easy for her and that she joined the top class for more of a challenge. However, this is just a bluff. Alicia knows how hard she had to work to earn her place here. Liz's admirers are furious with Alicia's condescending attitude. Liz, however, steps in and asks everyone not to isolate Alicia, even if her entrance was rude. Liz smiles warmly and offers her hand to Alicia, saying she's happy to have her as a classmate. Alicia ignores the gesture and instead takes a seat far away from her. She glances at Duke, feeling a little sad that he doesn't even look at her. When the lesson ends, Alicia tries to catch Duke's attention as he leaves the room, but Liz interrupts, inviting her to lunch. Alicia firmly declines, making it clear she doesn't want to be friends. Liz admits she had assumed everyone would want to be close to her because of her status, but Alicia's attitude has made her realize that's not always the case. Liz suggests they start over, but Alicia reiterates her lack of interest and walks away. At lunch, Alicia sits with Gil and wonders why Duke is so special to her. She's frustrated that she can't act like a proper villainess around him. Gil suggests she avoid Duke for a while to sort out her feelings, but Alicia refuses, saying that running away isn't something a true villainess would do. Determined, she heads to the cafeteria and approaches Duke directly. To break the ice, Alicia jokes about coming to see him sulking. The joke lands, and she follows up by sincerely apologizing for her earlier rudeness. She explains that while she never asks for his help, she does appreciate it. The class is stunned when Alicia bows to him. She adds that if she cares about someone, she won't watch from afar. She'll protect them herself. As she says this, she boldly grabs Duke's chin, leaving him speechless. Duke jealous. She unconsciously radiates negative energy, which others around her pick up on. Regaining her composure, Liz interrupts the moment by reminding Duke of an important meeting he's been avoiding. Duke, now in a better mood, agrees to return to his duties. Liz bids Alicia a polite goodbye, though she secretly feels threatened. Alicia, on the other hand, is delighted. Liz now sees her as a rival in love, which aligns perfectly with Alicia's goal of becoming a great villainess who can compete with Liz in every way. Alicia arrives, only to be greeted coldly by Liz's older brother. Liz welcomes her warmly, but Alicia quickly reveals she received a mysterious note instructing her to go to the Rose Garden after school. Jane, another classmate, admits she wrote the note. She accuses Alicia of bullying her friend Marika. Alicia immediately realizes this is the setup, but is oddly pleased. They dislike her just as a villainess should be disliked. Jane accuses Alicia of taking out her frustrations on Marika because she isn't as perfect as Liz. Alicia calmly replies that she only spoke to Marika once. Alicia stays close to Alicia, with everyone taking Jane's side. Just as the tension rises, a shy girl named Carol speaks up, suggesting that they hear Alicia's side of the story before making judgments. Jane snaps at Carol, irritated that anyone would question her accusation. That's when Mel acquires. She plays a recording of the real room falls silent as the truth comes out. Alicia's words were nothing or had been too harsh on their beloved heroine. Liz, embarrassed by the situation, apologizes on behalf of Jane and Marika. Alicia, however, neither accepts nor rejects the apology, keeping her dignity intact. Appears and pulls Mel back. He explains that Mel is his spy, a genius with earth magic who can conceal her presence and gather information. It was Mel who recorded the real conversation between Alicia and Marika. Duke admits that he had assigned Mel to watch over Alicia from the shadows so she could act freely. However, after their recent talk, Duke has decided he wants to protect Alicia more openly, so he allows Mel to reveal herself. Alicia's composure falters and she excuses herself, blushing at Duke's words. Later, the pair then travel to Rowena Village, where they notice significant changes in the area. Will Seeker. He confesses that he is the older brother of the current king. With this, our episode ends here. Grandfather Will reveals his painful past and shares his hopes for Lawana's future. He shocks everyone by admitting he is Will Seeker, the elder brother of the current king, Luke Seeker. Alyssa remembers an old picture and realizes the man in it is her grandfather. She asks why the king's older brother is living in Awana. As the cold weather sets in, everyone gathers around a fire. Will begins his story. He explains that he was born the son of the former king, but his mother died shortly after his birth. Without a mother, he grew up as an orphan and focused on learning magic. By the time he was 10, he had reached an impressive level 80 in magical ability. Will recalls how his mentor once called him exceptional. He disagreed, saying that leaders should be even stronger. To prove his point, he cast a level 100 spell, astonishing his mentor. However, his power got out of control, causing a massive disaster that froze the entire palace. Will survived by divine grace, but the incident left him unable to use magic ever again. Later, Luke, Will's younger brother, was born and became king since Will could no longer take the throne. Will congratulated Luke, but Luke told him not to bow. He said they were family and that their father had told him to support Will. Luke valued Will's wisdom and relied on him for guidance. As an advisor, Will helped Luke rule the kingdom. He suggested sharing power with the 5 great families to create balance, but Luke disagreed, saying their mother believed in keeping power centralized. They argued, and Luke rejected Will's advice, telling him he no longer wanted to hear his opinions. This was the last time they spoke. Soon after, Will was accused of plotting to kill Luke. He denied it, but conspirators beat him, blinded him, and sent him to a remote village. One of them mocked him, saying his eyes had been gouged out and he was exiled for a terrible crime. Feeling his empty eye sockets, Will screamed in pain and despair. Back in the present, Elisa is emotional after hearing Will's story. She asks if he was the one who lost everything because of overestimating his power. Will confirms this and says he warns others not to repeat his mistake. Gil is furious about the injustice, and Nate is shocked that Luke exiled his own brother so easily. Will explains that the records only said he was missing and that it was Luke's mother who plotted everything. He believes Luke never knew the truth. Will says he wants to meet Luke, tell him what really happened, and ask him to free Luana. He also wants to apologize for not respecting Luke's pride as a king. Elisa encourages him, saying the king might forgive him if he apologizes sincerely. Will thanks Elisa for giving him the courage to act, and she jokes that she might be manipulating him to take over the village. The next morning, Elisa and Gil talk about Will's story on their way to the academy. Gil is surprised Will shared so much. Elisa explains that Will's determination to face Luke comes from his desire to free Luana. She adds that Will's leadership has already improved the village. Gil agrees, saying the villagers trust Will now and that he's working hard to create a better future for them. Elisa and Gil meet a group of girls who admire Elisa but insult Liz. They call Liz a commoner who didn't deserve her place on the student council. Elisa quickly defends Liz, saying Liz earned her spot through her exceptional talent. The girls are shocked, thinking Elisa and Liz are rivals. Elisa explains that while she and Liz might argue sometimes, she deeply respects Liz's abilities. One girl complains about Liz being popular despite her commoner status. Elisa firmly tells them to speak to Liz directly if they have a problem. She also adds that Gil, a commoner, is much smarter than any of them, leaving the girls angry as they walk away. Later, Eric and Henry invite Liz for tea after class. Before they leave, Jane appears, upset, and apologizes for something that happened 2 days ago. Eric dismisses Jane's apology as fake, but Liz steps in. She takes responsibility for the incident and asks everyone to stop blaming Jane. Liz agrees to have tea with Eric and Henry, but insists that Jane join them. Jane hesitates, but eventually agrees. As they leave, one of Liz's friends warns Jane not to take advantage of Liz's kindness, and to end their connection if her intentions aren't sincere. While walking through the halls, the same group of girls who confronted Elisa earlier stops Liz to talk privately. Meanwhile, Elisa and Gil run into Henry, who tells them there's a big problem. Elisa, excited by the idea of trouble, eagerly agrees to help, while one of their energetic friends makes a comment about her enthusiasm before running off. Elsewhere, Vin and Curtis are playing ball when they see Elisa and her group taking an unusual path. Sensing something is up, they decide to follow. In a classroom, Liz confronts Elisa about rumors claiming Elisa spoke badly about her. Liz explains that the girls who stopped her had no real proof, but showed something that looked like a recording or note as evidence. Elisa, unfazed, sarcastically dares them to come up with better tricks. Liz quickly trusts Elisa and declares her innocence, surprising everyone. One of the girls protests, but Alia mocks their weak attempts. Finn exposes that these same girls had badmouthed Liz earlier and were now framing Elisa out of spite. Mel comments that the girls' actions were sloppy and backfired. Elisa, embracing her role as a villain, calls the girls cowardly and arrogant, saying they are worse than trash. Liz interrupts, saying the insult is too harsh, but Elisa stands by her words. Eric praises Liz's kindness and courage, sharing how she once protected her classmates from a wolf at the academy, even though she was scared. Elisa questions how a wolf, an animal not native to Dorcas, ended up at the academy. The girls, now embarrassed, declare their trust in Liz. Later, Elisa talks with her sisters, reflecting on her actions. She admits she hoped for a tougher challenge. Gil mentions that the wolf story might be true and suggests Lavelle could be watching Liz if she's connected to the legend. Elisa considers this, deciding to use the story to improve her image as a villain. She wants to act like a strong and confident noblewoman, but knows she still has a lot to learn. We then see Duke visiting Elisa in her secret hideout at the academy. He updates her on the state of the village and his talks with Grandfather Will. Duke warns Elisa not to focus too much on Lavelle, but this angers her. She strikes him in frustration before leaving. Next day, the teacher addresses the class about a serious illness that has been troubling their world for years. Dotene, the teacher asks if anyone can explain the disease, and to everyone's shock, Jill raises his hand. Whispers spread like wildfire among the students. What's the servant trying to prove? Does he think he's smarter than us? The teacher silences them sternly and allows Jill to speak. Jill explains confidently, Dotene causes spots on the body, but it's not a skin disease. It's internal, affecting vital organs. The condition is most common in people living near the Daejeon River. Since these communities depend on the river for daily life, they're exposed to contaminated water, which seems to be the source of the illness. Scene change after class. Elisa compliments Jill on his hard work. He humbly agrees, saying he's been studying day and night. Just as they're chatting, Prince Duke walks in with his usual air of mischief. He jokes with Elisa, but she shuts him down. "We're busy, Prince Duke. Go away." But Duke doesn't budge. Instead, he insists on learning about Dotine himself. Elisa pulls out a map and explains further. The disease's spread is tied to Laval's rapid industrial growth. Dorcas, being at the mouth of the river, bears the brunt of the contamination. Even if countermeasures were possible, their strained political relationship with Laval complicates the matter. Jill mentions a possible solution, a rare herb called mati found on cliffs in Laval. However, the worst hit area is the village of Luana, located at the river's tidal waves. Most patients in Luana die quickly due to a lack of treatment, with no hospitals or clinics nearby. Jill vows to find a way to help these people. Cut to Duke's private moment. He confides in a secret friend about his love for Elisa. He doesn't want to control her. He wants her to remain free, like a falcon soaring in the sky. Back to Jill and Elisa. Elisa asks Jill to fetch a book she left in the library. Jill agrees, eager to help. On his way back, Liz stops him. She wants Jill to study with her, claiming she needs to learn about Dotane to improve herself. Liz says she wants to work as hard as Elisa to understand the disease and prove herself. Jill hesitates, doubting that a villager like him and an outsider like Liz can truly connect. Liz doesn't back down. She uses a strange, magical power, almost like hypnosis, on Jill, mesmerizing him. She steps closer and tells him about her struggles with bullying and her wish to befriend everyone. She asks Jill to help her, just like he helps Elisa, and promises they can study together to create an even better essay under her spell. Jill reluctantly agrees. Just then, Prince Duke storms in, furious. "What did you do, Liz?" he demands. Liz stammers, claiming she did nothing wrong. Duke grabs Jill, whose trance-like state seems to break, and takes him away. Liz shouts after them, but Duke silences her with a sharp look. When Jill returns to Elisa, she scolds him for taking so long. Duke warns Elisa that Jill was acting strangely, but Jill insists he's fine. Elisa, confused, dismisses Duke's concerns. Scene switch. Duke meets with Mill to check on an investigation he assigned her. He asks if there's progress on the Saintess. Mill dismisses the Saintess as a puppet admired by everyone, but admits she hasn't uncovered anything significant. When Duke asks about ancient texts written in a mysterious language, Mill sheepishly confesses she hasn't even started translating them. Final scene in the dining hall. The students are eating together, but Jane stands out, furious and gripping a pair of scissors. Her intense glare is fixed on Carol. Whatever Jane's planning, it's clear trouble is brewing. Lisa and Jill are studying. Lisa is deep in thought, puzzled by two things: the mysterious Dotane disease and the wolf sent to Liz. She's convinced she needs to visit Laval to get answers. But there's a catch. The only way to Laval is through exile, leaving her stuck on what to do next. Suddenly, loud screams echo through the halls. Elisa rushes out and finds Jane in full chaos mode, holding a pair of scissors and standing next to Carol, whose hair she has completely chopped off. Jane turns to Elisa and blames her. "Yup," she says, "it's all Elisa's fault." Elisa, confused, asks, "Why would you do this?" Jane snaps back, saying Carol was trying too hard to be like Liz, just like Elisa once humiliated her. "This is all just hatred," Elisa calmly points out. "You resorted to violence because you couldn't win with words." Jane retorts, claiming Carol grew her hair to look like Elisa. Then she taunts Carol, "You'll never become Elisa." Elisa dismisses this with a smile, saying, "I already know Carol looks up to me. That's why I don't waste my energy on petty disputes." In her mind, Elisa thinks, a villainess is meant to be hated. Jane tries to rally the room against Elisa, yelling, "See, she doesn't care about Carol at all." But Carol speaks up, "This wasn't Elisa's fault. You're the one who cut my hair." Jane panics and yells, "Don't look at me with those eyes, just like Elisa's." To everyone's shock, Elisa grabs the scissors and cuts her own hair, matching Carol's new style. "Now we have the same look," she says with a sly smile. Jill, in awe, says, "You surprise me every day." The scene shifts to Duke teasing Elisa about her new hairstyle. "It's adorably infuriating. I wanted to be the first to see it." Meanwhile, Mill hugs Elisa, saying, "This look is amazing. It's literally recharging my energy levels." Carol, beaming with pride, says she's honored to have styled Elisa's hair. The next day, Elisa's new look starts a hairstyle revolution at school. Henry, watching the drama unfold, notes that the girls who once idolized Liz are now shifting their loyalty to Elisa. Even the Rose Garden becomes a battleground of cliques. "If you're on Elisa's side, leave," one girl shouts, while another fires back, "This garden is for everyone." Henry steps in, diffusing the argument. "This bickering is ruining your pretty faces. Let's go." The drama dies down. For now. Back with Alyssa and Jill, Jill notices the shifting loyalties and remarks, "Even Liz's die-hard fans are starting to waver." Elisa shrugs, wondering, can people's opinions really change so easily? Something feels off. As they walk, they overhear Jane being ridiculed by other girls. They accuse her of playing the victim and blame her for causing doubts about Liz. Jane, overwhelmed, cries as they throw mud at her. Elisa steps in, shielding Jane from the mud and scolding the bullies. "Why don't you leave now? Or should I start throwing mud at you?" Terrified, they scatter. Jane, still upset, asks Elisa, "Why are you helping me? This is all your fault." Elisa cleans her clothes with magic and tells her, "Crying doesn't mean you've lost. It's frustration that helps you grow. Stay here until you're ready to face the world again." Elisa even casts a barrier around the door so Jane can cry in peace. Jill, watching, tells Elisa, "You're so kind." Elisa, brushing it off, replies, "Save that compliment for Liz. I just didn't want to see something so ugly." The next day, Elisha is deep in thought, staring at a map like she's planning some world domination. Gil notices and asks what she's up to and why she's studying the map so seriously. But before Elisha can even spill the beans, Mill jumps out of nowhere and gives Elisha a hug from behind. The Duke, looking like he's ready to throw hands, pulls Mill away, clearly jealous, like, "Relax, buddy." Elisha finally reveals she's uncovered something big about St. Liz. Apparently, after some serious digging, Elisha found out that Liz is likely using something called charming magic. It's a rare ability only saints can use, which basically means Liz has the power to make people around her ridiculously happy. Elisha's hearing this is shocked. She's never even heard of this magic before. Then the Duke pipes in, saying, "Oh yeah, charming magic? It's in ancient texts. It's supposed to make everyone around you feel all warm and fuzzy, but only a saint can use it." The Duke suggests that Liz might not even know she's using it. The twist? People can only resist the magic if they've got enough magical power or some serious willpower. Gil, looking like a deer caught in headlights, suddenly wonders if his sympathy for Liz was all because of her magic. The Duke, ever the protective boyfriend, warns him to stay away from Liz because Gil's magic isn't strong enough to fight the spell. And, as the group discusses, Mill throws in her 2 cents about Liz's friend Jean, who's been acting all sorts of crazy, setting traps and cutting other girls' hair because, well, jealousy. Jean's acting like a psycho, and the group figures it's Liz's magic messing with her mind. Elisha suggests Liz might have completely lost control of her magic. It's affecting everyone, and they've got no idea how to fix it, since the ancient texts don't say jack about how to counter it. Henry, ever the skeptic, admits he's been suspicious for a while. He tried talking to the teachers about it, but they just laughed it off. The Duke, being the drama king he is, proposes locking everyone up until the spell fades, but he says they need to confront Liz to let her know what's going on. You know, the classic, tell the girl she's been hypnotizing everyone conversation. Meanwhile, Liz is with her friends who tell her the Duke thinks she's dangerous and deceptive. Liz, obviously hurt, denies it, asking why the Duke would say something like that. Then boom, the magic kicks in again. It spreads and starts taking over everyone around Liz, and it looks like Liz doesn't even realize it's happening. Lisa and her group try to approach Liz, but others stop them, accusing Lisa of spreading rumors. It's like they've all been brainwashed by Liz's magic. Lisa tries to explain she just wants to talk to Liz, but no one listens. It's clear the magic has completely taken over everyone. Elisha, watching this unfold, realizes everyone is just trying to protect Liz. Henry suggests waiting it out and letting the magic fade on its own. But Gil, ever the impatient one, insists they need to do something now before Liz's influence gets worse. And then, in true Duke fashion, he steps in, taking control of the situation like a boss. He tells everyone to back off because he's going to handle this personally. Guess it's time for him to have that heart-to-heart with Liz. the scene shifts to Liz hanging out with her friends, and guess who shows up? Matic. Liz asks where Arlasha and Henry are, but the Duke, being the jealous guy he is, immediately cuts her off and says he doesn't want to hear any man's name other than his own coming out of her mouth. Like, all right, dude, we get it, you're the alpha here. Meanwhile, Gil's talking to Alicia, basically saying he thinks the Duke is playing mind games with Liz. Alicia, probably tired of hearing the same thing over and over again, just shrugs it off, like, yeah, heard that one before. Classic. Now the Duke, showing off his magic tricks, teleports Liz to a room where Arlasha and Gil are waiting. He apologizes to Liz for tricking her but says it was the only way to get her to talk to Alicia. Smooth move, Duke. Alicia confronts Liz, telling her to stop using charming magic. Liz denies using it, but Arlasha explains that Liz is actually using it without even realizing it, and it's messing with people's heads. Liz, clearly not happy with Arlasha's lecture, snaps at her to be quiet. Drama alert. Arlasha then asks Liz if she thinks it's normal that no one ever tells her the truth. Liz, in her usual self-absorbed way, says her friends are loyal because they got to know her. But the Duke interrupts and points out that Albert's feelings for Liz might not be what she thinks. Liz starts having a flashback to a conversation with Albert. The Duke digs deeper, asking if Liz has ever wondered why so many people are so devoted to her. Liz, confused and frustrated, asks, if I'm really using some dumb magic, why doesn't Albert love me back? The Duke doesn't even bother answering her. Then Liz opens up, saying she didn't ask for saint powers. She was thrown into this fancy noble school world and was terrified until she met the Duke. She tried so hard to be the perfect saint everyone expected her to be. But Alicia finally realizes that Liz has just been pretending to be someone she's not. Liz admits she cares more about the Duke than Alicia, and the Duke, in his usual blunt fashion, tells Alicia he'll love her no matter what. Alicia's face? Priceless. Then Liz turns on Alicia, saying she hates her because Alicia is always so confident and knows how to take charge. But before things get even more heated, Alicia's sisters show up and tell her to stay away from Liz. Gil, sensing something's off, asks Liz if she's really using charming magic. Liz, feeling completely defeated, says she's tried so hard, but the person she loves doesn't love her back. She feels like everyone around her was just under her spell the whole time. Mill, being Mill, blames Liz for everything. Liz fires back, saying no one ever taught her how to be a saint, but everyone kept calling her one, so it's not all her fault. Alicia, finally having a moment of clarity, realizes that as long as Liz is full of love, she'll eventually find her happy ending. She steps closer to Liz and tells her to stop acting like a spoiled child. Whether Liz is the perfect saint or not, she's still the same person. Alicia urges Liz to think about her own happiness first. Liz, genuinely moved by Alicia's words, finally smiles. The group thanks Liz for everything she's done, and she's no longer living a fake life. She just wants to see everyone happy someday. Alicia, now seeing Liz in a new light, says she considers Liz a worthy rival from now on and encourages Liz to become the saint she truly wants to be, so Alicia can get her revenge. Liz, all serious now, apologizes if the saint she's become is a bother, admitting that she's loved everyone but everything ended so quickly. She wanted her confession to be a little more romantic. Then, in a twist, Liz tells the Duke she knows he loves Alicia, but his charm wouldn't let her give up. Liz grabs a book and announces, shockingly, that she's going to borrow it. Since she's got no one to have tea with, she's going to use the time to improve herself. Gil, wide-eyed, asks if this is the real Liz. Looks like she's changed, for real. We cut to the palace where the king asks the Duke what's going on so late. The Duke says someone wants to meet him. Then, boom, Alicia shows up with the king's brother, leaving the king totally shocked. He asks where Alicia has been and what happened to her eye. They leave the two of them to talk privately. Gil, ever the gossip, says he thought the king hated Grandfather Will. Alicia, however, calmly says maybe the king did at one point. She points out a portrait of Grandfather Will on the wall, which had been taken down at some point. Alicia thinks something happened between the king and his mother, but reassures Gil that Grandfather Will is probably not in danger. Back at the castle, the Duke confidently tells everyone that he can guarantee his uncle's safety. Alicia, though, isn't convinced. She says they need to prove the accusations against him are wrong and that they'll soon be able to free Luana. She also mentions that she had Rebecca investigate the situation, and so far, no one in Luana has actually been condemned for the supposed crimes. The Duke, surprised, admits he didn't know Alicia had gotten so deep into this. But now, with no reason to keep the village isolated, he's sure it will be freed soon. He also says Alicia will get a reward for her efforts and asks what she wants in return. Alicia, not missing a beat, says she wants a break from babysitting Liz for a while. She thinks Liz's charm will calm down on its own at the school. And once that happens, Liz can learn from others instead of relying on her. Alicia figures that stepping back will help Liz grow and get more confident. The Duke says he'll talk to his father about the situation and then hits her with the big question. So, when are you going to respond to my confession? He tells her he doesn't care about other people's opinions, but when it comes to her, he just wants an answer, eventually. Then, like a true man of mystery, the Duke leaves. The next day, Gil's got his teasing hat on and brings up how Elisha couldn't sleep because of the Duke. Elisha, super chill, says her feelings are clear. But before they can talk more, the Duke suddenly shows up, not saying a word, which catches them both off guard. Elisha calls out to him, but the Duke, acting all mysterious, turns around and says, "Who are you?" Alicia is left speechless when the prince doesn't recognize her. It turns out he only knows Gil because when asked about Alicia, he says he's never heard of her. The bad guy Duke looks confused and walks away. Later, Alicia joins her friends Finn and Curtis for tea. They're happy to see her because Duke usually keeps her all to himself. Guess he wasn't a big fan after all. Curtis is curious if something happened to keep Alicia away. Meanwhile, Henri sits with the prince at another table and asks if he had a fight with Alicia. Everyone is shocked that the prince doesn't remember her. He quickly changes the subject, saying it's not nice to talk about people who aren't present while having tea. Bill starts to think that Duke might have made the prince forget Alicia. Then, the villainess gets a letter telling her to come to the castle for a trial. Her family is puzzled why she's being blamed just because the prince doesn't remember her. But Alicia isn't scared. She's ready to clear her name. She goes to the castle with her dad, but ends up having to go to court alone. Right before she steps in, she stays calm, but wonders who's really behind this trap. She's pretty sure she'll be kicked out of the kingdom if found guilty, but honestly, she might not mind leaving. Joan is the judge running the hearing. Joan explains that Duke is there as a witness. Alicia is accused of using magic to erase the prince's memory. Mel, the magic expert, comes forward and says that only someone with level 9 dark magic, like Alicia, could do that. Alicia thinks things through and gets a clever idea. She smiles knowingly and asks Joan to exile her from the kingdom, since they're trying to make her look like a villain. She tosses Duke's necklace back at him, wishes him a good day, and thanks him sincerely. Joan goes ahead and officially kicks Alicia out of the kingdom. News spreads quickly at the academy. Some students aren't shocked because Alicia had a reputation for being edgy. Others are actually relieved. Carol believes Alicia wouldn't hurt anyone without a good reason, and Jane agrees, saying Alicia is great at hiding her true intentions. Meanwhile, Finn, Curtis, and Gale chat about everything that happened. They think the Williams family won't get in trouble because of their past successes. Only Alicia is taking the blame since her brothers aren't at school. Liz has been missing all this time, and Duke is busy preparing to free Loana by removing a barrier around the village, which requires some serious water magic. Back in Loana, Will, Rebecca, Nate, and Gil are having a meeting about Alicia getting exiled. The old man realizes there's a deeper reason behind everything that's happening. Liz pays a visit to Alicia after hearing about her expulsion from Eric, who came to apologize. The saint isn't happy because her rival is walking into a trap without even trying to fight back. Liz reveals that she's perfected her charm spell, which she plans to use to make the real culprit confess. Meanwhile, the boys overhear their conversation and are shocked when Alicia reveals that Duke is the mastermind behind everything. At the same time, Will is telling Gil and the others how Duke's magic skills make it impossible for someone else to cast such a spell on him. Turns out, Duke has been pretending to have lost his memory all along to get Alicia exiled. Talk about a plot twist. Mulan Will also shares that Duke has always had a soft spot for Alicia. Before she came to Loana, he visited and begged him to watch out for her. Because of this, the villainess is actually grateful to the prince. It means she can now go to Laval and investigate why the wolf was sent there. The saint is stunned to learn that Duke exiled Alicia out of love and calls her a villainess for not responding to the prince's confession of love. Alicia insists she doesn't want to be seen as a villainess. Later, the rest of the Williams family gathers for a meeting where their father explains that this whole situation is a strategy to uncover what's happening in the Laval kingdom. In another room, Alicia hands Gil a letter to pass to the prince. The letter explains why she can't return his feelings. She believes she needs to let go of love to achieve her goals. Gil feels like he's being rejected too, but Alicia assures him that their paths will cross again at the top. Determined, Gil vows to work hard and prove that commoners can perform just as well as nobles. The day Alicia is exiled finally arrives, and it happens right when Loana is being liberated. She shares heartfelt goodbyes with her family before being taken away. Meanwhile, Duke starts dismantling the magical barrier around the kingdom. Just as it comes down, Nate thinks the prince has arrived and rushes over to tell him to go see Alicia. But surprise, it's Liz standing there instead. Liz reveals that she finished removing the barrier because she's also skilled in water magic. The king and Will officially declare Loana free with a handshake, and everyone cheers. At the same moment, the prince uses his ice magic to stop the carriage at the border and rushes over to plant a kiss on the villainess. Talk about multitasking. Alicia can't let go of her feelings, so she tells the prince to wait for her, and he's willing to do just that. Her mother shows a black rose, a symbol that controls the kingdom's fate. She explains that it bloomed when Alicia was 7 and is blooming again, meaning Alicia is destined to fulfill this important role. Her father is stunned by this revelation. Meanwhile, Alicia is dressed in exile clothes and told to cross to Laval blindfolded and bound. As she's sent away, she reflects on everything that's happened and looks forward to what's next. And with that, the season wraps up.